Welcome everyone to this special roundtable session called Digital Practices, Materialities and Migrant Belongings. In this session we will have a few guests and we will show a few clips, but we also want, of course, the audience to intervene and to have a discussion. In the call, it said, or in the announcement, it said that we are interested in what belonging means to migrants, and for people who are considered migrants in society. We are interested in how can a sense of belonging be constructed or challenged by others. And we are particularly interested also, at least that's what we found out also in the discussions that we had before, that we are interested in objects and in materialities and in seeing how they matter to migrants and to the way in which the digital plays a role, of course, in their being. Especially in the COVID-19 situation, or maybe even the post-COVID-19 world, we have to rethink probably the role of the material in relation to the digital. So that's also something that we'd like to discuss. That's open for negotiation. So I'd like to start by, of course, thanking the conference organizers for hosting this session. They're both here, so thank you, Koen and Sandra. I can see you on my screen. I would like to thank Maggi, of course, for taking the initiative, who is in the train waving somewhere between Utrecht and Arnhem. That's how it goes in these days. So I will just take take up the role of moderator. But Maggi, of course, if you have the opportunity, you're always free to intervene. For this session, we are very privileged to have a few guests very involved in especially the Utrecht community. We have independent filmmaker Isha Shikar. I don't know if you need to wave. Yeah, you can wave, and then we know who's that. From Shakar Productions. Sorry if I mispronounce things once in a while. Shakar Production is a film company focused on moving stories. This is a term that you work with a lot, moving stories. The company also develops and offers trainings and programs in video, photographing and storytelling. And is, of course, interested in multicultural topics. So that's what we will also find out later in these sessions, when we will see three of the films, of the short productions, that they are very much involved in multicultural practices. Then, second, we have a series of guests connected to what is called the Voorkamer. How do you translate that into English? The front room, something like that. It's an organization in Utrecht, which can best be described as a cultural meeting space to promote inclusion and integration by stimulating and facilitating the talents of our diverse community. Since day one, they have striven to ensure the initiative, not so much, sorry, I have to rephrase that. So the Voorkamer believes the strongest tool for integration, cohesion, and stimulating the feeling of belonging is the encounter between people. So that's really what they do in many different ways, many different programs. If you are interested in it, look at their website. They have a lot to say about that. The Voorkamer is today represented by Shay, Raviv. Two hands. Pim van der Mijl is also here. And we also have a special guest, which is Dima Kadri. She is a Syrian and lives in the Netherlands since 2017. She's also a law student and an active community member of the Voorkamer. And there she is. Welcome all. So what we plan to do is that we have three topics which we want to discuss. And we will start each topic with a short film from Isha Shakar. And then we will have the Voorkamer responding to it. Of course, Issa can also kind of say something more about it, or what was the idea behind it. These are short films, by the way. And then the Voorkamer will respond, and then we can have a short discussion about it. And then we can move to the next topic, and then to the third topic. As said, we have 3 topics. The first topic is, what does a sense of belonging mean? Very wide, of course. So Issa, could you show your film and say something about it?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm first of all very happy to be a part of this roundtable, and I'm also happy to share some of my work with you today related to the topic of the conference. So the first video, what Rick is talking about is what I want to show. It talks about belonging, but more the material belonging and or the physical belonging, symbols, objects. Refugees took with them when they migrate. And I made it in 2016. That was when, it was like the peak of the crisis back then, if I may call it a crisis. And I wanted to, I asked few of them, what is the most important object you took with you during your travel um, to Europe? And this is the video what I want to share with you now. It was even shared by the New York Times, which was really nice. And before I show you the video, I will say a quick quote from the video, which I think is very powerful and interesting. And for this video, it's from a mother who tells the story of the pants of her sons. Um, she said, he was ready to die for that pair of pants. Now, I'm going to show you the video so you will understand more about it. I will also put the links of the videos in the chat for you if you want to watch them later also.
أنا أهم شي جبته معي من سوريا ولا إشي، كله اتدمر لأنه كله كان تحت تراب، يعني تعب العمر كله ولا إشي. ابني عمره 13 سنة أخذ معه بنطلون كان غالي عليه جدا جدا جدا، لأنه تذكار من أخوه ضل بالشام وما قدر جيبه معي. بس بالطريق المهرب حاول يكب له البنطلون وقال له ما بطالعك على البلم إذا ما بتكب كل أغراضك. قال له بكب كل شي خلي لي البنطلون. قام قال له ما بتاخده بنزلك. قام قال له أوكي نزلني موتني شو ما بدك أعمل. ما فرط فيه وتقاتل هو والمهرب. كانت يعني هتروح حياته مشان بنطلون، فضل محافظ عليه وما بيقبل إنه يلبسه نهائياً. بيقول لي طالما في ريحة أخي وكنت ألبسه أنا وياه فما فرط فيه ولا بلبسه وبضل محافظ عليه بس مشان شوفه وشمه هيك بس لبين ما يجي أخي بالسلامة. بتمنى من الله إنه يجي ابني لعندي ويعيشوا الأخوات مع بعضهم ويلبسوا ويرجعوا يتخانقوا ويلبسوا البنطلون سوا مثل ما كانوا. بس أمنية صغيرة بس حلوة بالنسبة إلي، حقق لي كل شي. هاي
أهم شيء أخذته من سوريا صور بناتي، وحدة عمرها 4 سنين والثاني عمرها 2 وهن بألمانيا، ومتأمل إنه يشوفون والتقي فيهم. متفرقين لأجل الظروف اللي صارت عنا بالبلد. مرتي ما عاد تتحمل، طالعت بناتها معاها وأنا على أساس إنه أتواصل معاهن. ما صار كل هالشيء ولا بعرف وين هن، يعني إنه قاعدين بأي منطقة. طلعت مشان شوفهم مشان ما احرمهم حنان الاب، وهاي اهم شيء اللي عندي. طالعت من سوريا صور بناتي بس، ما عندي شيء يعني غيره. هذا اهم شيء عندي.
أهم شيء اللي جبته معي الخاتم. يعني كتير بيعني لي هالخاتم. طلعت من سوريا بسبب الأوضاع، طلعت على تركيا، ظروفي بتركيا كانت أصعب من ظروفي وأنا بسوريا، فاضطريت إني أطلع. طلعت وأنا هلا صرت باليونان، بس لسه في شيء ناقصني اللي هي صاحبة الخاتم، وبدي إياها تتأكد إنه أنا لساتني بحبها، وكل يوم عم يزيد حبي إلها. الشيء اللي ناقصني هون بالغربة بس حنانها، دفى ايديها. هالخاتم كتير بتعنيني. هالخاتم يعني بحسه يعني اهم من روحي. مرة شلحته ساعة نسيته، حسيت كل هموم الدنيا ربوا على صدري. فالشي اللي بتمناه هلا اني ارجع اشوفها ولو 5 دقايق، ولو 10 دقايق. ما بدي شي بس اني ارجع اشوفها وتكون هي سالمة ونرجع لبعض. هاي امنيتي بهالحياة.
That was my video. I want to just mention that it was filmed partly in the Netherlands and in Lesbos. And now I think we can go back to Rick. And of course, I see many hands. Maybe Rick, I don't know how you want to do this, that if people want to talk, maybe they just unmute themselves or talk, or just write the question in the chat.
Yeah, the hands were mainly clapping, but it's
clapping, sorry.
at least that's what I got from the symbols.
Okay.
Yeah, we can also just ask the Voorkamer to respond, because they also have some photos to show us which link to the topic of that we put central first. So what does a sense of belonging mean? So you give us some very beautiful examples of how particular objects can mean an awful lot to people. And I think the people from the Voorkamer would like to respond a bit to that, if I'm correct.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thanks for taking the time on a Thursday evening to join us on this digital roundtable. Thank you, Isa, for the beautiful movie. I just wanted to say what I really appreciated is how, due to the sort of frozen but not frozen image that you created with the voiceover on the back, I feel like you kind of break sort of the conventional tragic storytelling that we often hear, sort of showing a different voice to the protagonist that you're displaying, and I really appreciate that. And for us, I think looking for reframing or looking for new narratives in how we display people who moved from one country to another, how we talk about migrant or refugee, reframing that notion into people that arrived searching for a new belonging, and how can we, by participating, by creating a safe space, a place where people can belong to, move away from creating 2 separate groups or 5 separate groups, but look more for interaction points. So before responding to the movie, maybe it's nice if we introduce the perspective of the Voorkamer, and then we can sort of merge the topics. What we do, of course, aligns very well with the story that Isa is telling with the different movies. But I'd say we work more from a participatory approach. So we have a space Pim, do you want to share the first images that we have so we can give people a sense of the space itself? It's a physical place, a meeting space in Utrecht. And I think that relates really well to the movie, because for us from day one, it was clear that we want to create a physical place, a place where people meet each other and create connections that can go beyond the stories that they hear on the media, beyond social media reports, beyond fragmented perspectives from all across the political spectrum, because we think that only by getting to know another person, you can overcome certain ideas that you have. So the moment that it becomes personal, let's say the gaps somehow are challenged. So it's a place in Utrecht since open since 2016. I like to present it by sharing how we used to call it and how we call it now, because I think it kind of relates nicely to the reason we are here today. But we used to call it a meeting space for newcomers and locals, because we wanted to be really clear with what we do for whom and why. But through the work and conversations with community members and with our team, we realized that by maintaining two groups in our tagline, if you may, we keep on maintaining the idea of the one or the other. And we keep on preserving the idea that there is a newcomer and there is local. And I think the topic of today, we should directly ask ourselves, are you ever local? When are you a migrant? Can we move away from these traditional definitions of migrant and locals? Because we think that's really essential. So we deleted that tagline, newcomers and locals, and we changed it to place where cultures meet. On one hand, making it quite broad, which can be sometimes difficult to explain in one line. On the other hand, I think more aligned with the idea that our countries, our cities are more and more hybrid places with multicultural, super hybrid, where people come from all around the world, or are second generation or third generation, and therefore migration is deeply embedded in society, even if it's not a person that moved 3 years ago, but someone that moved 30 years ago, or that their grandparents moved. Anyway, we look for cultural mediums and design as a way to connect people. So we work with different programs where design and creativity are seen as a mean to create personal connections. And everything in the space, whether the physicality of it, so you see now a backgammon board, you see from far little chairs, kind of blurry. You don't see lamps, but there are lamps hanging. All of these materiality properties of the space have been co-created with the people that use it, with people that have interest in different crafts, or the content of the space, so storytelling, music, any programs are also then always co-created in diverse groups of different people from all across the world that work together by and for the community. So that's a bit in short, I guess. Yeah, I think Isa is telling stories and that are able to reach a broad audience, and then we aim to bring these stories to the physical aspect by having a place where people can actually meet each other. So I'd say it's quite complementary. Of course, not now. Now it's a bit more challenging.
Could you also say, or maybe Pim or you, could you say a bit more about the project that you had on common objects, because that also links very nicely to the film?
Yeah.
Or maybe our guest, I don't know if you were involved in that, Dima.
No, I can share some more on this. I'll share the screen again in that case. Here we go. So indeed, if you look at the video, what I think is very beautiful is that each object tells a story that relates in the end to people again, and their connection to it. And in that sense, belonging is about people. In common objects, we tried in a time of Corona, where physical interaction or meeting is very difficult, try to create a way for people to share their stories by looking at the objects they possess. And also the same question actually was asked, as Isa asked, is what is your most precious object that you possess? And was asked to share it with the other people within the group. The objects were exchanged. And then by working online and offline, so group sessions online and one-on-one offline, people started to exchange the stories behind these objects and share it with each other again, and retold the stories to each other, adding their own perspective to that story of the other person, reflecting on the meaning of it together. Shay, maybe you want to add something more?
Actually, to add to that, we asked people not necessarily their most precious object, because we wanted to have a project that also challenges what are the most precious objects, and to not necessarily go directly to that very, very sensitive, possibly quite difficult story, but to maybe introduce new stories. So we asked people to bring, or the artist that did this project with us, asked people to bring an object that is live to them. So an object that is meaningful, but not necessarily the most sentimental or the most precious or the most expensive object, but an object that holds a relevant meaning to them. So sometimes it was also really strange objects, things that seem like nothing to other, but due to the story get alive. And then to add that and maybe round up for if there's already questions, what we did is that the artist did, Raviv, she gave people had to give the object to someone else in the community. That someone else had the opportunity to hold the object and also to unwrap it. So the wrapping was quite important. And then to write the story of the object based on what they heard from their giver, and to add to that their understanding of the object. And then that object was again exchanged and the story was exchanged. So it was sort of the idea that the object is charged by meaning due to the transition it goes through. And while a story is told and each person sort of adds a layer of what they picked up to deem to be important in the story, the object becomes more and more important throughout the process. So from something as silly as cafeteria decoration from plastic, something that seems almost like garbage, charged with stories, it gets meaningful and it gets extremely important. And the act of exchanging the object, giving it to someone, is also that moment where it becomes suddenly precious, even if in terms of material, it's really not.
I added the link to the chat. If you want to read some of the stories that came out and see more of the objects, you can open that link and look for yourself. And what I would like to add about the project is I participated, and I found it very refreshing to, in this time, be able to meet new people through this process. So to have one-on-one walks and to discuss the meaning of these objects, get to know new people, and have this objects as a way to get to know the other, instead of like usually maybe in the Voorkamer we would have games or music or other elements to connect people. Actually, the personal objects as a point of conversation, starting point of conversation, was very triggering.
Yeah, so actually the exchange of object belongings became a method for community building. So obviously it's not about the object itself, and there is an exhibition at the end, and it's wonderful. But the process of exchanging objects and their stories and building upon that was seen almost as a tool for community building, and which for us is that enhances belonging. Sort of separate from your belongings, but by exchanging these things, you become then a part of a group, even if for 2-3 weeks, or a part of a space, or a part of the city, because you walked that path with that person talking about that object. So it's almost like a driver, I'd say.
Okay, wonderful. I'm really interested in what Dima has to say about this, or about the Voorkamer, about her involvement in this.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. And it's really interesting topic, and I'm really glad that I'm being here today to talk about it also. So I want first to thank Isa for the movie. It's really interesting, and it's also remind me with the only thing that I bring also from my home in Syria, and it was a book, and it was a gift from my uncle. And he also stayed in Syria. I didn't see him since like 7-8 years. So this book is also for me like a sense of belonging to my country, to home, and to my family there. And if I want to go back again to the topic of sense of belonging, I think for me it's basically about sharing some points of commonality with the society surrounding me, and feeling that you are fit in the society, that you are being understood, and that you don't feel that you're a stranger. And I think it's a really like complicated process, especially if you are like from a totally different culture and different background. So I think for some like immigrants or refugees, this could be harder. So for me, instance, I think because I came from different background and culture, it's really take a lot of efforts to put yourself out there and to seek to build a network, and to get to know the community, and to get the people also know you, because I think it's like it's not only a one-way process, it's like two ways. So it's need the migrant or the refugee to try to put an effort to make a connection and talk to people, but also it's need the other side to be open, and also to try to reach the gap, like because as Shay said, like there's a lot of sometimes assumptions and stereotyping, and it's all these kind of things can disappear if we just talk to each other. And so that's why I'm glad for places like the Voorkamer, because I think it's one of them, like the first places that make me feel kind of a home, because not only because of the place itself, it really has a lot of elements that remind me of my Syria, like some books, some coffee, and some stuff like this, but also the idea that you'll be able to be a productive member in this place, in this small place, and being productive and feeling that you are valuable. I think that's make it make this place more belong, like you feel that you belong to this place because you are valuable and that you are appreciated. So yeah, I think that's what I want to add.
Nice. Thank you very much also for your presence, of course, on such a short note. I would like to open the discussion to the audience, and I would like to make a note first that this session is recorded. So if you don't want your video to be recorded or your voice, you can even pose your question in the chat. But you can also pose it directly to either Isa or to the people from the Voorkamer, to Dima or whatever.
And if you do want to share something, then I would at least love to see you, if you don't mind, because then I will get a feeling of a round table in the square screen.
Aisling raised a hand. Please pose your question.
Hi. Yeah, my research is on migration as well, and I'm actually doing a participatory filmmaking with Irish migrants in London, and this particular part of the project is on particular objects that they had brought over with them. So I'm kind of wondering sort of about the kind of logistics of sort of filming and talking about objects and kind of the charged meaning of objects, because a lot of them kind of said, oh, you know, this is a ring that I never take off, or there's somebody that brought it was a Victorian writing box, you know, this huge box that she brought, you know, and it was like an effort for her to bring it. So it was kind of like the mix between sort of sentimental small objects and then also these big sentimental objects that you know, they kind of were a big effort to kind of bring to the interview space. So I was kind of wondering about like how you would kind of, don't really know how to phrase this, how you construed your own meaning from what they brought. And like, is it more that you're kind of saying, oh, you know, this is your own meaning that you're construing to this object, or is it that you're kind of placing your own meaning on these particular objects? Does that make sense?
Maybe Shay, you want to respond to that, or Isa?
Shay, do you want to answer?
I'm not quite sure how to capture the question or the thought. I think I need either another sentence, or maybe Isa, you can go ahead and I can respond.
I'm afraid I also have the same. I'm not sure if I understand exactly.
I think what was important is whether we are interested in how particular objects raise value or kind of mean stuff for many people, or is it a very personal story that you're interested in?
Yeah, exactly. Is it that you're kind of just concentrating on their personal story, or is it that you're kind of projecting, I suppose, your own kind of meaning onto these objects, or is it just that you want to kind of keep their own meaning specifically to these objects?
Yeah, good question.
I think from the perspective of the Voorkamer, building on what Dima said, it would be more making a new object, a physical object, or making something that could also be a program, or making a story together as an act of looking for common ground. So we would very often use the making of an object as an excuse to work together and then connecting, for example, someone who is interested in wood making or textile or ceramic with a local maker, making something that has a contribution to the space or its program. And I'd say for that, the object is merely, is indeed a vessel, like something that is giving us a really good excuse to collaborate, because there is a certain goal, an end goal, which creates motivation, which creates exactly what I think Dima said, which triggers participation, and so, you know, suddenly you have something to work around, to talk about. It's really wonderful to see how when you make something together, whatever it is, it's so much easier to have a conversation, to start a connection. So in that sense, it's not so much within perspective of the Voorkamer. Thanks, Pim. These are two things that two objects, a stool and a lamp that were made, and in this case, the choice of the symbolic aspects were derived from community members, and it was made together with a workshop in Utrecht. And this is also a ceramic cup made in co-creation between Muhammad and Suzanne. And the cup here, and then that maybe relates even more to your question, is an abstraction of a story. The story is, we started in a story with a story as a starting point for a design process. So a story that is meaningful for you, an experience that you would like to share. We usually work with questions to guide that. And there's,
if I may add, Mohammed in this case reflected on a story where he went to the hammam, the bathhouse, and how this is a very special experience for him and his friends to be together and to share stories. And in the ceiling of the hammam, there is a pattern. It's a very old place. And this pattern is architecturally represented in this object by him in those lines that you see. So this is how we try to connect personal stories to new made objects that are then used within our space to create a space that is ours.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, shall we go to the next one? Miriam Abigail, you raised your hand.
Yeah. I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to say, so I'm from Utrecht originally, and I haven't lived in Utrecht since 2013. So after before the Voorkamer was established, but I've been to your venue several times, and I'm really, really happy that Utrecht has such nice, welcoming environment, and that you're doing such wonderful stuff. So I just wanted to say that.
Good to know.
That's so nice to hear, especially now since we are not really functioning as we normally do. So we miss like this kind of energy. So it's needed to keep the motivation.
Yes, Utrecht needed you. So.
Okay, we have a next question, Vale, or a remark. Yeah, Vale.
Yeah, here I am. I didn't plan to, but I think it's important that we bond, no? All these black squares are quite disheartening. You have touched so many points. I do storytelling. I'm living in Sarajevo, but not originally from here. I'm Italian, but the last almost 30 years of my life, I moved in the Balkan. And you can guess, no? It was a war. So I did a path of solidarity. And the issue of migration or refugee or forced migration, no? We can find different names and things. It changed my life, but it changed the many, many lives. And my partner, which is not anymore with us, I remember how much objects were meaningful, because an object were really a treasure. So I remember when I arrived a little box, and we opened it, in that box were tapes, and there was music, a group, a quite underground group, and the exposure and the sharing, it's an entire world. So I find that what you do, it's brave, powerful, immense. And I really don't know, and I hope that restitution is possible. So I just wanted to thank, because I work on internet rights and sexuality. This is where I do my activism. But I wanted to listen more about migration, because Bosnia, it's another frontier that the Europe have put, no, about migrants, and it's a very cruel one. So again, no, so this spot, this evening, you have touched so many points in which I'm a witness, a privileged witness. So I just wanted to acknowledge how immense you are for all what you are doing and thriving. So thanks.
Thank you. Beautiful to hear.
Yeah, sorry. We also have a thank you in the chat from Bagita, a very powerful film and reflections from the NGO. Thought I have is that many points taken up are relevant to everyone everywhere. This is what makes us human, from Jönköping University in Sweden. Just having said that. Okay, let's go to topic number 2, which is a sense of belonging as relational. I would like to ask Issa to start again with a short film and with some explanation, and then we can take the same trajectory.
Yes, great discussion, by the way. I want to quickly mention that I once, several years ago, made a video which talks a little bit more on discrimination in the Netherlands. And that video went viral with more than 50 million people watching it. I will put the link in the chat.
Yes.
We are now going to watch actually a video which I made 2 years after, because unfortunately my 50 million views video on discrimination in the Netherlands did not solve the problem. Discrimination is still there. And I thought I want to cover this topic a little bit differently in the new video. So I thought I want to do it from actually Dutch people who do not typically look Dutch, and show if they face discrimination. That video I will show right now. It is in the Dutch language, and it has English subtitles. I want to quote something from the video which you will see now from Jasper. He said, "It felt all of a sudden like I'm not a member of this society, as if I was completely excluded." Let's have a look. Just a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Yes.
Ik zat thuis, ik werd gebeld door wat vrienden of ik 's avonds nog, het was zomer, nog naar een terrasje wilde of zo. Dus ik stapte op mijn fiets. Ik kon eigenlijk de wijk uitrijden en ik kom bij het kruispunt. En bij het kruispunt staan 3 jongens, blond, voor mijn gevoel allemaal in blouse en pantalon.
Ik ging de tram pakken naar het Centraal Station. Toen ging ik kijken hoe laat mijn tram ging. En er zat een man en hij sprak mij aan. Hij vroeg of ik niet kon lezen. En ik dacht dat het een grapje was. Dus ik reageerde met een grap terug. Ja, toen begon het.
Ik ga de hoek om en ze roepen me na, kut Marokkaan. Ga terug naar je eigen land. En toen kreeg ik nog naar mijn hoofd geroepen dat we een kankergezwel waren. Dat de maatschappij kapot maakte.
Hij begon van alles tegen mij te zeggen. Over dat wij allemaal maar naar Nederland kwamen en niet de taal leerden. En dat we allemaal maar terug moesten naar ons eigen land. En ik legde hem uit dat ik uit Nederland kom. Ik ben hier geboren. Mensen zien mij regelmatig, bijna wel wekelijks aan voor Marokkaans of moslima. Meestal vind ik dat een heel mooi compliment, want ik vind ze altijd prachtig. Maar als zoiets gebeurt als hier bij de tramhalte en ik word om die reden gediscrimineerd, ik kan niet anders zeggen dan dat het gewoon heel naar is.
En toen het geroepen werd, dit specifieke geval, ik voelde in één klap alsof ik geen onderdeel was van deze maatschappij. Alsof ik er volledig buiten werd gezet door 3 jongens in een pantalon. Bij Schiphol moet ik er echt op letten dat ik niet mijn baard te lang laat groeien en een beetje extra hipster kleding aandoe of een hoedje opdoe. Want als ik dat niet heb, iedere keer als ik dat niet doe, word ik er veel ruwer uitgepikt.
Het voelt heel raar om gediscrimineerd te worden. Ja, en ik weet ook vanuit mijn werk, mensen met een Arabisch-islamitische achtergrond gediscrimineerd worden in Nederland. Ik begeleid jongeren bij wie dit wel regelmatig gebeurt. En je kan je enigszins inleven, maar nu ik het zelf heb meegemaakt, weet ik hoe heftig het is op het moment dat het ook echt gebeurt.
Dat je die mening misschien hebt, vind ik erg dat je die hebt, maar hou me voor je. Wat heeft het voor nut? Wat ga je ermee oplossen door dat te roepen? Het maakt alleen maar afstand.
En ik voel me verantwoordelijk om anderen te vertellen over mijn ervaring. En zo ben jij ook verantwoordelijk om te zorgen dat het niet gebeurt. En als je iets niet begrijpt van een ander, stel elkaar vragen, leer elkaar kennen. We hebben veel meer met elkaar gemeen dan dat we verschillen.
En als er maar één iemand is die zo'n filmpje kijkt als dit, die denkt, ja, ik trek te snel een conclusie. Als ik iemand zie, in een seconde denk ik te weten wie die persoon is, dan hoop ik dat die ene persoon, al is het er maar één, denkt, nee, oké, ik wil dat anders gaan proberen te doen.
So yeah, I tried. Yeah, you can hear me. I tried to indeed reflect on this topic in a different way. We always hear the stories from the migrants, from the non-Dutch about discrimination, but it actually happens to Dutch people. But just because they don't typically look Dutch. So I'm happy that I found Jasper and Jane to tell and share their personal stories with us.
Yes, it's very important. I think that the people in the Voorkamer could also say something more about the projects on discrimination in general and the way in which that is kind of being addressed in your setting.
I think the Voorkamer as a whole was a reaction in a way to what we have just seen. It started initially in 2013 and these ideas were later in 2014 continued when in the news there was spoken of a wave of refugees coming to Europe. And then at the same time also protests starting in Oranje, for instance, at refugee centers that were created there. But also in Eindhoven, where we were studying, Shay and I, was a future refugee center to be put on fire as a protest. And as a reaction to that, we created the Voorkamer. I think one of the characters just mentioned sharing these thoughts creates distance, and we are there to make the distance smaller. We actually try to get people in the same room to meet and to interact. If you look at, for instance, the newspaper, or even a video, you know, a newspaper you can close, a video, your television screen you can turn off, a book you can close. But when you sit in front of another person, it's very hard to deny their human characters and the overeenkomsten, things that you have in common as well. So in that sense, the Voorkamer is a reaction to this as a whole.
Yeah, and then at the same time, I think while we heard from the people that are joining this session such wonderful compliments, I also think we need to be sort of aware and humble to the fact that because it's a place, a physical place that you walk in when you want to, or if you find a program interested, or if someone invited you, are we able to reach with this also hyper local approach people that like from what we saw in the movie that are so charged with hate and violence and such strong polarized opinions? Will they walk into a place like ours from own initiative? That's something that of course you have to question and wonder. So I think this is also always playing in the back of our mind or the front of our mind, like how do we go beyond those that are already willing to come in or to join or to participate? It's a long process.
You set up projects, right, on culture shock and on the Lino group, which kind of dealt with the whole idea of how do we deal with discrimination in general.
Can I ask a question in regards to that? Because because of the locality as well, like you might actually, like, have you ever encountered people who like enter the space who do not have well intentions, or you know, sort of opinions that
to be honest, not really.
That's good.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, maybe before we share a bit about two other cases, and also we thought it's nice to show you a lot of visuals to make it also more tangible. Maybe Dima, you have something to share and about the topic in general, or about the topic in relation to the Voorkamer, or from your own perspective, like whatever comes to your mind. It's a complicated.
Yeah, thank you, Shay. Yeah, I think it's really complicated, and seeing the video, it's also like make me more sad that like Dutch people who are born here and they speak the language and still face this kind of discrimination. I think, like as in the video said, like the main problem is that you have questions or you have assumptions about me, just talk to me. And I think we also face that because a lot of people have a stereotyping because of the media and different things about us, and you feel that you have the pressure to clarify yourself every time you speak to someone, and it's really not nice pressure. That even that you need to prove that you have, like for me as a person who's a Muslim, and wearing headscarf and all these kind of things that are part of me and my identity, I feel that I need to prove every time I'm talking that I'm not oppressed and that I have the freedom of choice and all these kind of things, because these people have these assumptions about me. And I think, as I said, like the main solution is to talk with each other and to learn from each other. And I think like I'm part of one of the activities in the Voorkamer, and it's about storytelling. And I found it one of like the amazing, let's say, steps to make these things easier for me. So when I tell a story, and it's not necessary to be about something important, sometimes it's just about like my dreams and stuff like this. And I feel that people start to understand me and start to address me as Dima, as my, like who I am, instead of the assumptions that they have. So this kind of activities, it's really matter, and it's really make it way easier to just have like to solve this kind of misunderstanding between each other. Yeah, that's what I want to share.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that link, that connection.
If I may add to that, this is how we try to work in the Voorkamer, is by bringing different people with different backgrounds in our room and build a program based on the interests that these people have in common, and so work on co-creation processes. And it can be in different kind of ways. So it can be about storytelling, it can be about making physical objects that we mentioned before. But in the end, what we try to do is we try to look at the individuals in the group and what binds them. And that is the starting point of the work we do.
And then I think Dima mentioned one practice, making story also as a community building practice, but also as a way to sort of look for how do we present ourselves to the world, how do we talk about our past, present, and future. And then the other two projects that we wanted to share, the Leung project, I'd say it's a bit less directly about discrimination. That's quite maybe a leap to make it a one-on-one connection, but it's more about making something together in order to overcome maybe language barrier, maybe cultural barrier, maybe the feeling of being a stranger, maybe the lack of not feeling connected to the city or the place, not feeling at home, not feeling understood. So the Leung project, linoleum is a craft, a print method, old school print method. You carve, basically you make sort of stamps, carving out of a designated material called linoleum, and then using that to print. And we have a really active group that uses this as a way to gather. So they come and they make stamps and print, bind it by a specific question or a subject or an assignment. And also we look for a way to connect that to other programs in the Voorkamer. So for instance, the Leung group made a poster to promote more of a lecture series called Perspective about the topic of borders. So in that way, I think that's more of a strategy we try to use, is to integrate like different work groups and activities. So that's to shed light about the Leung group. It's also just such a beautiful thing to do together, and it looks always wonderful. That's kind of the nice thing, is that maybe the singular stamps are not always not always perfect, but then when you put it all together, it becomes really, really beautiful. Should I respond to Maggie's question?
Well, I'm also interested. Yeah, Maggie made a comment. Let me read it out for others in the chat. Of course, she's not allowed to talk in the train as a proper Dutch person. Picking up on Shay's comment, would the digital space be a more convenient space or channel to reach to the non or not yet converted, such as Isa's film that went viral? Yeah, I'm also very much interested in how Isa's kind of deals with the topic of discrimination in these films, and especially the use of internet is crucial here. So if you could say something about that, Isa.
Sure, I will keep it short as I'm looking at the clock. I strongly believe in the power of online videos, and it is very clear to all of us the consumption of online videos and how it's been raising in the last 10 years. Yeah, first of all, strongly believe in the power of online videos, and that's why I try to take full advantage of it. So in that case, yeah, this is what I'm trying to do as much as I can, and that's why I use internet short online videos to talk about topics I personally face, like discrimination, but try to do that in more creative ways.
And really, really successful, of course. You got 15 million views. That's quite a lot.
Yes, that was one of my best indeed watched videos. But I've done many other videos which went viral also, but they are not all related to discrimination. I also make other videos.
Yeah, you mentioned the time. I'm not sure how strict Koen and Sandra are. We do have one more topic.
Please take your time because there is a glitch between the overview program and the detail program. So.
Okay, well, we can try to be a bit more brief. Maybe if there are some pregnant questions also still in the audience, we could have one. Otherwise, we will move on to the next film, which deals with COVID times. Well, let's move on. Isa, could you show your film then, the last one?
Yes, of course. Very quickly, it is the story of Wendy. Wendy, yeah, really nice that she allowed us to share her personal story. And it is related indeed to migration, discrimination, but also to COVID-19. I just quickly want to say a small quote from the video. Before coming to the Netherlands, I had big dreams. Now I'm hopeless because I feel like I'm not belonging to here because of my skin color. All right, let's watch it together. I'm going to share my screen. This is not Wendy, this is Trump, if you don't know. Okay.
I can name Kung Flu. I can name
every disease I've ever came from China.
Before, I've never seen myself as a victim, but after Corona, I have to say, yeah, I'm also a victim now.
Hi Wendy, welcome. Wendy, we want to show you a few video segments and we would like to hear your reactions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Gaat hij dan bij deze Rotterdamse toon met voorkomen is beter dan?
Chinezen.
Ah,
dus.
Vreet geen Chinees, dan heb je niks te vrezen, want voorkomen is beter dan Chinezen. Niet dan deze corona heb je zo.
Wow, this is not okay. Definitely not okay. Yeah, really terrible video. At the beginning of everyone need to wear masks, like that measure came out, I went to Dolphijn in Utrecht. I was in the queue and waiting for enter the supermarket, and then there was like a local uncle He's taller than me, and he just told me, don't come into the store with me. And I cannot enter the store with him just because I'm Asian. So yeah, that was really an unpleasant story.
Up to the next video.
Every disease has ever came from China only. Everything comes from China. So it's disgusting. So I'm bringing this and I'm bringing everything that they bring to our country.
What goes through you when you see this happening in public transport?
Well, I related myself to this because I have a similar experience on the train. So I was the only one wearing mask in the train coach. And then he just walked to me and then said a lot of things in Dutch. I only felt he was super aggressive. I feel a bit hopeless before this university actually. I had a lot of dreams. I wanted to achieve a lot of things in the new country, in the new continent, but now I kind of lost the ability to dream anymore because I feel like I'm not belonging to here, or I can never adapt to this society only because of my skin color. So this is the part, like you cannot work hard to achieve a certain goal only because of your skin color. This is really hopeless feeling.
So yeah, this video was made together with Anna and Common Frames University of Utrecht. And of course, special thanks to Wendy for sharing her story with us.
Yeah, thank you, Issa. This was a project that actually Maggi and I were also involved in because this is also quite an urgent thing, especially in the Netherlands. Again, a response from the Voorkamer because, of course, these are also issues in the COVID times and post-COVID times that are on your agenda and how we need to deal with that. Relation to inequality and online communication is something that that has become, I guess, more visible in these days.
Yeah, it doesn't directly relate to the video, but definitely you can see inequality through COVID. For example, there's a lot of activities now organized online like this one, but we don't keep in consideration the accessibility maybe completely to these programs. For some people, it's a technical issue. For others, like many people living in refugee centers, for instance, the Wi-Fi connection is just so bad that it's very hard to join these kind of activities. So when designing programs like this, how do you think about that? How do you make it accessible to all these different people that actually can't at the moment?
So first of all, again, like this movie shows such complicated and terrible stories that I almost feel quite hard to then speak after that on strategies of the way we organize things, because it's like feels a bit like a leap, but so bear with us, please. We just, for example, we organized an activity last week, and there was someone that wanted to participate. It was part of the women group activities that we do, and it was an online activity to print together using the Lino technique that we just shared. So it was again to project connecting, and because we know that for some so to make this accessible for more people, we made kits with your own Lino print. So that people can pick it up and then go home, and then we work together online, but you have this making or this tactile thing that binds you together. And we opened it up and invited people, and we made kits, and then we even delivered them to people's home if coming to the Voorkamer was also not really possible. And one person one woman that lives in the refugee center wanted to join and said she doesn't have a computer to join with, or a tablet. So we said, okay, then come to the Voorkamer and one person will be there and then we can make it happen. But then there is, I think, still a quarantine in the AZC, because they had a couple of cases there. So people are not allowed in and no one is allowed not out and not in. So then even opening the space and offering a kit and delivering a kit, like none of that then reaches that gap. And then it feels quite frustrating, because you almost feel like, yeah, you're losing contact with a lot of people. And it's not that easy then to say, come join an online activity, because it's just, yeah, the limitations are sometimes just too high. So I think there it's been such a terrible year, because of the feeling of like you can't actually always serve the purpose on which you're established. So that's kind of the dark side of it. And I guess the more positive side is these hybrid forms of bringing something to someone's house, delivering it personally, saying hi from far and making a connection, and then meeting online really helps to bridge these gaps and to build a community. So yeah, that's kind of the bright side of it.
I think we could share some more of the projects we've been working on. I don't know if you see the screen I'm sharing right now. Yeah, okay, good. So when the first restrictions became upon us, we tried to start looking for ways to see the restrictions not as merely restrictions, but also as maybe design principles, or how can you use these things as elements that maybe have a power as well. And we do this in different ways. So for instance, this program was co-created with a designer that we worked with. And she started to look in different ways for the summer program, how to connect people. And this is an image of the aqua gym that we did, in where the little pools themselves created the distance between the people. And at the same time, there was a possibility to interact together and do sports together. Another thing I want to highlight is that what you see often is that we work very local, so local that we work in our own tiny space. At the same time, there's so many other initiatives and places around us in only Utrecht already. Actually, the measures of Corona made us look around us and made us look at other parties and how to collaborate with them. This is, for example, in the Nijverheid, a very big creative hub in Utrecht. So through Corona, we started to actually expand our horizon and initiate more collaborations and start to use each other's facilities. And that started connecting us as different parties trying to work for the similar causes within Utrecht. One of the shows we did was in the Nijverheid Culture Shock. It's a program where two musicians or different artists are matched together with different cultural backgrounds, and they co-create a new piece, a new song, especially for that show. It's the first time they meet, and they make new content. I will share a link to the one of the pages where you can listen to some of the creations made. Another thing that I think is very interesting is to look at how can we create a way to deal with online at the same time also offline. So we try to design our programs in which groups are meeting online, but at the same time the encounters are offline, like with the program that we showed before with common objects. How can you create all these different elements within a total program where groups interact and exchange, but also you meet individuals and you meet in the physical space? Or how can you work online, but at the same time by working with Lino that people have at their houses, and each participant has a piece like this. There's something physical connecting us. Or how can you ask a question that makes you interact with your surroundings behind your screen, asking you to pick up an object and tell something about it? So how do you find ways to break that barrier, to break this wall that we're all sitting in front of? Yeah, there's a last project, but maybe we'll give it a minute. We can share it in a bit. Rick, we don't hear you.
You are muted.
Sorry, I thought I switched it on. A lot of compliments for Isa in the chat. I would also like to hear a bit more from our special guest, Dima, on how you experienced, especially the last year and COVID times, and what this means for connecting to people.
Yeah, I think personally, this year was a kind of tough because I have been in the Netherlands for 3 years, and I think my main network could be created or was created because of these activities and these events. And suddenly when everything was closed, it just hit me that this network is not maybe strong enough. So for these people who have limited network in the Netherlands, they don't have like all their family here or a lot of friends that they can just walk with outside or meet them. It was, I think, really difficult not having activities or not having place to go and meet others. So that's why I feel it was really valuable, the activities that the Voorkamer was doing. And it's really meant a lot, I think, just to have to chat with someone, even online, during this time and sharing like your worries and your difficult times with. But still also, as Pim said, it's not easy for everyone. And I think for me, like I'm used to online stuff and using technology, but like for other people, like my parents, it was more difficult to get used to use Zoom, for instance, or to have something fun to do or to get connected with others, of course, due to other like obstacles like language and stuff. But mainly the online thing was not fit, I think, for everyone. So yeah, I mean, still it's really valuable activities and it's really help a lot, but it's still, I think, missing some people. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Are there any more questions from the audience? We are kind of using way too much time, but we still want to give a proper ending to this beautiful conversation that we're having. Are there any comments from the audience still? I think everyone is impressed by the films from Isa and by the projects from the Voorkamer.
May I just add one last remark, maybe? I think this is really important, and the content, for example, I work on, and the Voorkamer is really good. But on the other hand, I really also think that myself, and others should also focus about the positive sides of migrants coming to, for example, in this case, to the Netherlands, and what they bring with them. And for that, I would like to refer to a short video. We're not going to show it now, but you can always watch it on my YouTube channel. Because Mother's Day is coming in a few weeks in the Netherlands. And when I first came to the Netherlands, I discovered that many of my Dutch friends never tell their mothers, I love you. And in my culture, we say a lot of I love you to my parents, to my family. And so I challenged my Dutch friends to call their mothers and to tell their mothers, I love you, in a video. And you can watch it on my YouTube channel, because Mother's Day is coming. So again, I think that it would be also really nice if we try to focus our content, and this is a remark to myself, of course, about the positivity and the positive and energy and spirit which migrants bring with them.
I think you have to show it now, Isa.
I have to show it now?
Yeah.
You have to show it and also give us the link of your YouTube channel.
It's a bonus, please.
He has been sharing the links of the different things in the chat.
It's a short video, of course.
The one was from Parool. It's not. So that.
I have an English version also of the video. It's 3 minutes. Shall I show it?
Yeah, let's show it.
It's a beautiful end.
This is in a little bit more maybe positive way.
Yeah.
The way we like it.
Here we go.
Hey pa, met Sander. Hallo. Hoe is het, jongen? Heel goed. Maar is ons mam ook thuis? Oh, die zit naast mij. Zit hier naast jou, zou die heel even mogen?
Met mij gaat het ook goed. Oh, ik hoor je niet zo goed. Ja, nu hoor ik je beter.
Hallo. Hey ma.
Hallo jongen.
Hey, hoe is het?
Goed.
Ja?
Ik had jullie straks gebeld, maar jullie waren nog niet.
Nee, dat klopt, we waren even weg. We waren even naar de bioscoop.
Hey, mam, mag ik eigenlijk even...
Hey, heb je het leuk gehad?
Ja, het was heerlijk weer. Dus,
Ja, nou, het was iets kouder dan hier. Maar dan kun je gewoon ontkleden, het is droog.
Maar ik wil je eigenlijk toch even iets bijzonders vertellen.
Hey, mam.
Is dat de eerste keer pas?
Ja.
Hey, waar ik even voor bel? Mam?
Ja?
Waar ik even voor bel?
Maar goed. Hey, mam, mag ik eigenlijk...
Maar ja, en de eerste keer dat je pas met...
Ik wil echt wat vertellen.
Nou, wat ga je vertellen? Ik zeg nog eens rustig, wat zeg je?
Ik bel je omdat ik je iets wil vertellen.
Je wil je iets vertellen, nou vertel.
Oké, en dan... Mam, ik zeg het niet zo heel vaak.
Ja?
Maar ik wou toch heel even zeggen dat ik van jou hou. Ik hou van jou.
Dat ik van je hou.
Ja?
Ik hou van jou.
Is dat ik je eigenlijk niet zo heel vaak verteld heb dat ik eigenlijk heel erg van je hou. En ik dacht, ja? Hou je ook van mij? Nou, dat is fijn. Ja?
Hey, mam, waar ik eigenlijk even voor belde gewoon. Eigenlijk is iets wat ik gewoon even wilde zeggen. Mam, ik hou van je.
Oh jochie, wat leuk. Ik hou ook van jou. Oh, vertel.
Nou, ik hou ontzettend veel van je.
Ah, ik ook. Ja, dat is een leuk telefoontje. Dat is nog leuker dan een moederdag cadeautje. Zo.
Ja, want ik dacht, volgens mij hebben wij dat nog nooit tegen elkaar gezegd eigenlijk.
Echt niet? Nou, echt niet?
Ja, dat weet ik ook niet zeker, maar...
Volgens mij wel eens. Ja, zeker. Volgens mij wel. Heus wel.
Ik dacht, ik vind het eigenlijk heel spannend om jou zo te bellen, dacht ik.
Oh, jeetje. Leuk dat je me dat even vertelt. Dat bedacht je niet. Dat je dat ging vertellen.
Ja.
Ja,
Dus,
heerlijk. 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 Ik dacht, wat ga jij nou voor ernstig vertellen? Ik zijn om te horen. Ik hou ook van jou, schat. Heel veel.
Nou, gelukkig.
Annemarie, wil jij tegen onze Sandra zeggen, als jij weet, hè, dat ik ook een hele grote invloed op zijn opvoeding mee gehad heb. Dus dit compliment dat je aan die moeder kan geven, dat kan hij ook wel aan mij geven. Ja, geef je het even door. Tot ziens. Groetjes.
Dat was dus mijn vader. Ja, ik ben dus jaloers.
And back to you, Rick.
Yeah, how to move on. I would just want to thank you all. Thank Issa, Pim, Shay, and Dima especially, and thank Maggie for being in the train. Thank the organizer of this conference for making this happen. And yeah, that was a beautiful way to end, Issa. And let's continue the conversations tomorrow.